Probably the most frequently used teaching strategy is lecturing. And effective lectures can be very efficient, and they can also be effective. But many times, we've not really seen true effective lectures. I'm reminded of the great orators of the history of this country, and also more recently, effective speakers like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Reverend Dr. Billy Graham. They were effective lecturers using no notes, no PowerPoints, no visuals, but you still got the points that they were making in their lectures or speeches or sermons. But there are some important strengths of effective lecturing. One is that it's very efficient. We can lecture to very large numbers of people and disseminate large quantities of information in a relatively short period of time. It's also a minimum threat to students. Now, that can be viewed as a weakness, but it's also a strength, and that is, if students don't want to be involved, they don't have to be involved. And also, effective lectures show good organization. And organization is an important principle for us, and also can be an indication that we are clear teachers. Now, there are some weaknesses in lecturing as well. There's no feedback from students. It's hard to get even non-formal feedback in a large lecture hall. Also, that lecturing is probably better used in lower levels of cognition. So when we're trying to move into analysis, synthesis, and evaluation types of information, lecturing might not work quite as well. And then, of course, students are passive. And when students are passive, they may engage in things other than listening to the lecturer. Well, there are actually 4 key points that we can think about when we want to make sure that our lectures are effective. The one is very simple, and that is preparation. Effective lecture takes great organization, which means that we have notes, perhaps we're using PowerPoint, but we have a good idea of where we're going and what it is that we're going to do, and we have some examples that we're going to embed into our lecture. So that's our first point. A second point is the presentation itself. And effective lecturing requires good speaking skills and also follows good communication thought, where there is an introduction, there is content, and there's summary. Tell them what we're going to tell them, and then tell them what we just told them. So that's presentation. The third is stimulation and getting the students interested. Enthusiasm, being enthusiastic about the subject yourself and about teaching, and also having good examples that show how this can be used someplace is an example of creating interest and stimulating their thinking. Start the lecture with a question or an example or a problem that we've run into to stimulate their interest. And then the fourth one is feedback and interaction. Now, with large groups in lecturing, maybe it's not easy to get feedback, but I've used 1-minute papers, I've used Muddiest Points, I've used Think, Pair, Share in a lecture of over 600 graduate teaching associates because it got them actively engaged and I got some feedback from them. Obviously not all 600, but at least enough to know that they were getting it, that they understood where we were going, and that they had those key points. Well, there are more tips and more suggestions on the paper that is associated with this podcast that's entitled Effective Lectures for Active Learning. And I hope that you can review that to get some additional ideas on how we can move talking into effective lecturing.